it's TxStampin Sharon. I have got some fun things to share with you today using Aqua Painters, blender pens, watercolor pencils, and ink pads. I've gotten lots of questions lately, and the one that I got the other day really got me thinking. So I decided to pull them all out and share some tips with you. I hope that these tips help you. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. And if you have a crafty friend who would enjoy this video, why don't you share it with them? If you're new to my channel, welcome. I invite you to subscribe by hitting that button below and then hit the notification bell. You'll be notified every time I upload a video or I do a YouTube live. I do YouTube lives on Thursday evenings at 6 p.m. Central. Let's get started. Recently, someone asked me a question about Aqua Painters, blender pens, watercolor pencils. So I got them all out and I started playing. It's been a while since I have shared this with you guys. So I thought it was time. I chose the stamp set Mountain Air. I live in a town in Arizona called Sierra Vista, and that means the view of the mountains. They are all around me. I'm always amazed at every day their different colors and the way the sun hits them. I mean, it's just incredible. So I chose this stamp set. And I'm going to go through several things with you, and I hope that I can teach you some things about watercoloring with Aqua Painters and what else those blender pens can do. All right, so you can use watercolor paper, or you can use shimmery white. Those are the only two papers that Stampin' Up sells at this time that you should use water with. Okay, if you use it with the Whisper White or Very Vanilla, you're going to find that the paper will pill up, and you could actually go all the way through the paper if you rubbed really hard. Just saying, okay? So these two papers work the best. Now, I'm going to start off with shimmery white, and then I'm going to show you my card. So on my first card, I'm going to ink up my mountains with soft suede. This is a big stamp. I like to turn it over, make sure I get everything good and inked. This is a photopolymer, so I do have my cushion there. I always like to hold that stamp on there to give the ink a chance to get all the way down into the paper, okay? So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of my blender pens, and there are two ends, and we've had these for years, and I like to use, I'll use one end for one color, and then I clean it off, and then I flip it over to use for another color. I like to give that end a chance to rest. I don't know, it's just something I've always done. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna color the darker part of the mountains. And I'm not going to fast forward this video because I want you to see everything that I'm doing. It's not going to take long. Okay, so now I'm just going to wipe off my tip. And now I'm going to come in with the lighter color and just go over it with the blender pens. So the question was, would I suggest blender pens over Aqua Painters? And I say, I suggest both. And you will see on this card, especially this card, why I say that. I'm also going to share with you some things not to do so that you won't have any problems when you are making your cards. Now, did it really matter if I wiped off my tip? I don't know. I was just trying to give the lighter color a chance to be lighter and not pull in the darker if I could help it. Now these stamps are called reversible. I will share some looks for you and some ideas by using it as a reversible stamp. Okay, again, you always want to clean off, oops, I missed a spot. You want to clean off your tip so that it's ready to go for the next color. Then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to stamp my trees, and I'm using Garden Green. And I'm going to stamp them right there. Whoops. And then I'm going to ink it up again. And I'm going to continue that grassy look right there. So remember, I did the blending pens here. Now I'm going to take the Aqua Painter. I'm going to give my bulb a little squeeze, not too much, okay? And then I'm just going to color. This truly is what my view looks like out of my window in the summertime. Right now, in the desert, it's kind of brown. Okay, again, you want to clean that off. Then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my StazOn. Whenever you have water anywhere, you need to be using StazOn, because that way your images won't smear when they get wet. So I'm going to stamp some birds. Sierra Vista is also known as the bird capital of the United States, especially for hummingbirds. I did not know that when I moved here. Next, I'm going to take my Daffodil Delight. And I really think this is supposed to be the moon, but we're going to make it be the sun. You could take the Aqua Painter or the blender pen and do this with it. I'm just going to kind of fill it in more. Yeah, I really think it's the moon, but that's okay. We're going to pretend. Then you're just going to mount it on soft suede and it's done. Okay, so pretty quick and easy. I think you'll agree. Now let me show you some more things. So again, I'm using a shimmery white, and I'm going to ink up my mountains with the StazOn. And then I'm going to do it again, kind of offset a little bit. But I wanted a lighter color, so I'm happy with that. So now let's use the watercolor pencils, okay? Before we use the inks with the Aqua Painter and the blender pen. So now, now this is an old package, but now I think they come like this. But there are quite a few colors to choose from, and I want early espresso for my mountains. And I wanted to mention, when I sharpen my watercolor pencils, I use the cheapy little pencils from, you know, the office supply store that the kids carry in their school supplies. I have found that my big one that cranks chews up my pencils, okay? So I just use this and just get a little bit more of a point and I'm good to go, okay? All right, so we're gonna go ahead and color quickly. I'm gonna hold this up. I hope you can see the scribble lines. The blender pen smooths all those out. Look how pretty. Very quick coloring. These mountains don't really require any shading because of the artist shading that was already done on the stamp itself. It just makes it so much easier. There we go. Pretty quick. Okay. So now I want to use my pencils to color my sky. And the reason that I chose using the blender pen there is because it's not that wet, okay? It's not gonna bleed when I use the Aqua Painter up here. If I was going to do this with the Aqua Painter, I would need to wait until this was completely dry before I started doing the sky. We're gonna get Balmy Blue out and we're gonna color. I'm gonna get my Aqua Painter, give it a little squeeze, make sure it's not too wet, and then we're gonna smooth out all these pencil marks. I'm going in very lightly close to my mountains because I don't want to pick up any of that early espresso. You can give the bulb a little squeeze as you go to add more water, and the water will help dilute it some. You'll notice that my paper is curling. That's okay. I have a trick for you. You can also take the Aqua Painter to the actual pencil if you needed to come in with some more color. See how like right here I didn't color enough? I just want to do a little spot. And since that's already kind of wet, I don't want to take my watercolor pencil to the wet paper. Again, wiping that off. And then I can do the same thing that I did on the previous card with my, my trees. So this is what my finished card looks like. After this was completely dry, I came in and stamped the clouds, okay, that come in the stamp set. But I did the same thing with the trees here. There is a white pencil in the bigger pack. And I tried to add snow, but it didn't work on that. The images were too dark. I was like, because that's right now, that's what mine looks like. They're brown with snow on them. So, and beautiful blue skies. All right, let's keep on moving. So now we're gonna switch to the watercolor paper, okay? I've been playing with the shimmery white, and now we're gonna switch to watercolor. The first one I did, and I'm gonna show you so that you don't have this challenge. I stamped in the soft suede, I let it dry. I came in with the green, I let it dry. When I went to go do the sky, can you see how my water bled and still picked up that early espresso? So I figured out really quick that I could not do this with the watercoloring above because I did watercolor this. I used the Aqua Painter, but everything was still pretty damp and it still was enough to bleed, okay? So you wanna be mindful of that. So I thought, okay, we had that challenge. So now we're gonna switch to our stays on, because I told you if you're gonna use stays on, then, or if you're gonna use water on your products, on your projects, then you need to use stays on. Not on watercolor paper. The stays on is not as juicy, and so it would not get into the texture of the paper, okay? So I learned that. Well, I already knew it, but I kind of forgot. Okay, so here's what we did instead. I'm just going to use the back of this one so that I'm not wasting that precious watercolor paper. I took my Versamark pad. I took my embossing buddy. And I inked up my stamp with the Versamark. Now, StazOn kind of tends to stain the any stamp, whether it's photopolymer or red rubber. So we're going to stamp right here. And then I pulled in my copper. For those of y'all who know me, you know I love my copper. And I'm telling you, I am not lying. This morning, when I looked out at the sunrise, those mountains looked like copper. It was absolutely stunning. And we're going to heat set it. And now I'm going to show you a trick using the Aqua Painter and my early espresso. You can take and put the early espresso on a, this is just a scrap card base that I messed up. I'm just going to go ahead and add a little puddle right there. If I wanted to, and I'm going to go ahead and do this just so that y'all see, I could even add a little black in there to give it a different color. You can mix colors. Pretty cool, huh? Did you know that? This is going to be a darker than my sample, but I'm okay. I want you to see what it does. All right, again, how wet are we? We're pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of squeeze the bulb so I can pick that up. And then I'm just going to start painting. There you go. How pretty is that? Okay. Finishing off the card the same way. Stamping the greenery, the trees, doing watercolor across the top. I can do that once this is dry. I don't want to, the copper is not going to smear or bleed, but my, early espresso pencil might. Now, before I show you the finished card, I want to share another tip with you. So I have a Night of Navy card base, just folded in half. And see how this is buckled a bit? I have found that the best way to apply this to my card base is to use liquid glue. Now I am coming right along the edge. I want to make sure I get as close as I can because I don't want this layer to buckle or pop off. Oh, I think I need some more liquid glue. I would say so. Okay, that's gone. All right, so now we're going to pull in our card base. We're going to add this, and then I'm going to take that silicone mat, and I'm really going to hold it down. And the other thing I like to do, I have a couple of these large blocks, acrylic blocks. I like to just stick them on there and then let it set for a few minutes. And then I come back and I know that it's good and flat. Okay, so that is that tip. But let me show you the card. So just with that copper, but see how it's kind of lifting up a bit? So I am going to go take this off camera and put my blocks on it. I sure hope that I have taught y'all some things to use the Aqua Painters and the blender pens with, the watercolor pencils, the stamp pads. I can always go back. Right now I'm going to call these note cards, but I can always go back as the occasion arises and add a sentiment on there, you know, with a layer. I would probably use Peaceful Moments because it's my new favorite right now, but you could use any stamp set that you have to create birthday cards, Father's Day cards, thank you cards, whatever you wanted. So happy stamping, y'all.